It is very early in the morning. The sky is dark, but not entirely dark. There's a pale, faint glow at the far edge of the horizon, somewhere beyond the old oak tree and the low stone wall that runs along the east side of the property. The glow is soft. It is almost gray. It is the kind of light that does not quite feel like light yet, but more like the memory of light from the day before. The farm is called Millhaven. It has been called Millhaven for a very long time. Nobody remembers exactly why it was given that name. There is no mill nearby, and there is no haven particularly. There is simply the land, flat and quiet and patient, stretching out in all directions under the slowly brightening sky. The farmhouse sits in the middle of all of this land. It is a low, wide house, painted white a long time ago, though the paint has faded now to a kind of soft cream color that is almost the same color as the morning fog. The house has a porch on the front and a porch on the back. Both porches have rocking chairs on them. Nobody is sitting in the rocking chairs right now. They are just sitting there, empty, rocking slightly in the very gentle breeze that comes before dawn. Inside the house, everything is still. The floorboards are old and smooth. They are the color of warm honey. The walls are pale, and on the walls there are a few framed pictures. A painting of a meadow, a photograph of some cows standing in a field, a small calendar from a few years ago that nobody has taken down because it has a nice picture of a barn on it. In the kitchen, the kettle is on the stove. It is not yet boiling. It will not boil for some time, but it is warming slowly, and somewhere deep inside it, the water is beginning to move in a very small and unhurried way. The clock on the kitchen wall ticks. It ticks in a regular, even, unhurried way. Tick, tick, tick. There is nothing unusual about the ticking. It has been ticking like this for many years, and it will continue to tick like this for many years more. Outside, in the yard between the house and the first barn, a cat is sitting on a fence post. The cat is gray and white, and it is sitting very still, watching something in the long grass that only the cat can see. Or perhaps it is not watching anything at all. Perhaps it is simply sitting in the way that cats sometimes sit, without any particular purpose, simply being there on the fence post in the cool early morning. The grass in the yard is wet with dew. Each blade of grass has a small drop of water on it, and in the faint gray light, these drops catch what little light there is and hold it for a moment before it disappears again. The ground is soft underfoot. The earth smells rich and cool. A rooster, somewhere in the distance, makes a small sound, not the loud crow that roosters are known for, but something quieter, a practice crow, a tentative sound, as if the rooster is not quite sure yet whether it is truly morning. Then the rooster is quiet again. The barn stands about 20 yards from the house. It is a large red barn, or it used to be red. Now it is more of a dusty rose color, the old paint worn by seasons of sun and rain and frost. The barn doors are closed. Inside, the cows are sleeping, or standing in the slow, patient way that cows stand at night, not really awake and not really asleep. You can hear them sometimes through the thick wooden walls. A soft shuffling of hooves on straw, a low, slow breath, the quiet sound of a large and gentle animal simply existing in the dark. The hay in the loft of the barn smells sweet and dry. It is hay that was cut last summer, in the long warm days when the fields were gold and the air buzzed with insects. Now it is winter, or nearly winter, and the hay is stored and still, and the fields outside are brown and resting. This is the farm in the early morning, before anyone has woken up, before the day has truly begun. Everything is resting. Everything is quiet. The sky is slowly, very slowly, beginning to change from gray to a pale, soft blue. At 6:30, a light comes on in the kitchen. It is a warm yellow light, and it falls across the porch and onto the yard, making a long, soft rectangle on the wet grass. A figure moves in the kitchen. This is Harold, who has lived on this farm for most of his life. Harold is not young, but he is not old either. He is somewhere in between, at the age when a person has learned to move slowly through the mornings, because there is no reason to hurry, and because the body, after years of early mornings, has settled into a rhythm of its own. Harold fills the kettle from the tap and sets it on the stove. He does this every morning. He has done it so many times that he does not need to think about it. His hands know where the kettle is, and where the tap is, and how to turn the burner on. His mind is somewhere else, or perhaps nowhere at all, simply resting inside itself while his hands do the familiar work. He stands at the window over the sink and looks out at the yard while he waits for the kettle to boil. The sky is lighter now. There is a strip of pale gold along the horizon, and above it, the sky fades from gold to orange, to pink, to a soft gray blue. The cat has left the fence post. The fence post is empty. The kettle begins to make a very low sound, not quite a whistle yet, more of a hiss, the sound of water heating up, getting ready to change into steam. Harold watches the sky. The strip of gold at the horizon grows wider, very slowly. He makes his tea. He uses one tea bag and a small amount of milk and no sugar. He has made tea this way for many years, and he does not think about it. He sits down at the kitchen table with his tea and an old newspaper, though he does not read the newspaper very intently. He looks at the headlines, and then he looks away. He drinks his tea slowly. The kitchen is warm. The stove has been on long enough to take the chill out of the air. Harold's coat hangs on the back of the kitchen door. It is a heavy canvas coat, tan-colored, with large pockets and many years of use in it. There is hay stuck in one of the pockets from the last time he was in the barn. Outside, the farm is beginning to wake up very gradually. The sky is fully light now, though the sun has not yet risen above the tree line. The light is even and soft, with no shadows yet, the kind of light that makes everything look gentle and clear. The fields stretch away from the house in all directions. The north field and the south field are plowed and resting for the winter, the earth turned up in long dark rows that catch the morning moisture. The east meadow is left in grass, dry and brown now, where the cows will graze in the spring when the grass comes back. Harold finishes his tea. He rinses the cup and sets it upside down on the drying rack. He puts on his coat and his boots, which are heavy rubber boots that he keeps just inside the back door. He opens the back door and steps out onto the porch. The cold air meets him. It is a clean, still cold, the kind that comes with clear winter mornings. Harold breathes it in slowly. He stands on the porch for a moment, looking out at the fields, at the barns, at the line of trees along the creek to the south. Everything is very quiet. A crow calls from somewhere in the tree line, one long flat call, and then is quiet again. Harold steps off the porch and walks across the yard toward the barn. His boots make a soft sound on the cold ground. The dew has frozen slightly at the edges of things, along the fence rails, and on the tips of the taller grass stems, and it crunches very faintly when he steps on it. His breath makes small white clouds that disappear immediately in the cold air. He opens the barn door. The smell of the barn is warm and familiar. Hay and animals, and the particular dusty sweetness of old wood. The cows turn their heads toward him. There are 7 cows, large and brown and very calm. They regard him with large dark eyes. They are not especially interested in him. They are simply registering his presence in the way that cows do, with a kind of slow and patient acknowledgement. Harold says good morning to them. He says it quietly, not expecting an answer, simply because it is the right thing to do. He says it the same way every morning. He begins his work. Feeding the cows is a simple task that takes time. Harold fills the water troughs first, checking that the pipes have not frozen in the night. The water comes out slowly and then steadily, filling the trough with a low, pleasant gurgling sound. The cows move toward the water and drink. They drink slowly and deeply, their heads low over the trough. The sound of them drinking is soft and rhythmic. Then the hay. Harold climbs the ladder to the loft, which is something he has done so many thousands of times that his body knows each rung, knows where to put his hands and feet, knows the particular creak of the 3rd rung from the top. In the loft, the hay is stacked in bales, neatly piled from the summer's cutting. He takes a bale and cuts the twine and drops it down to the barn floor below, and then another, and then another. He does this slowly and without hurry. Down below, he spreads the hay into the feeding troughs. The cows come to it immediately, lowering their heads and beginning to eat. The sound of them eating is soft and tearing and rhythmic, a sound that Harold has heard every morning of his adult life, a sound that is as familiar to him as the sound of the creek, or the wind in the fields, or the ticking of the kitchen clock. He checks each cow briefly as he works, running his hand along a flank, checking that each animal is healthy and comfortable. The cows do not mind this. They continue eating. They are large and warm and solid, and the barn is warm from their bodies, and the smell of the hay is sweet. And outside, through the high, small windows of the barn, the sky has turned a pale gold as the sun finally comes above the trees. When the cows are fed, Harold goes to the chicken coop. The chickens are already awake and moving about in their small, noisy way. They are Rhode Island Reds, mostly, with a few others mixed in, and they move in the quick, jerky manner of chickens, always appearing to be in a hurry about something, though they are not going anywhere in particular. They cluster around Harold's feet as he enters, expecting grain. He scatters grain from a tin can, spreading it in an even arc across the floor of the coop. The chickens descend on it immediately, pecking with a rapid, mechanical precision. The sound of many small beaks pecking at grain on a wooden floor is a busy, satisfying sound. He checks the nesting boxes. There are several eggs, still warm from the hens. He collects them carefully, placing them in an old wire basket. He does this every morning. The eggs will go to the kitchen. He refills the water for the chickens. He checks that the coop is secure, that no wind has loosened a board or a latch during the night. Everything is in order. He leaves the chickens to their grain and goes back out into the cold morning air. The sun is fully up now. It is a pale winter sun, low in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard. The frost on the fence rails has begun to melt, and small drops of water catch the sunlight and shine briefly before they fall. The shadow of the barn stretches long and blue across the yard. Harold stands for a moment in the sun. It is not warm, but the light is pleasant on his face. He looks out over the fields. The plowed earth in the north field is dark and still. A hawk circles high above the east meadow, very slowly, riding some current of air that Harold cannot feel from the ground. He picks up the eggs and walks back toward the house. Inside the house, the kitchen is warm and smells of toast and tea. Harold sits down at the table again, this time with breakfast. 2 eggs, scrambled, on toast with a little butter, and a second cup of tea. He eats slowly, looking out the window. The yard is bright with winter sunshine. The cat has reappeared and is sitting on the porch railing, cleaning its face with one paw in a slow and methodical way. After breakfast, Harold does the dishes. This takes a few minutes. The water is warm, and the soap makes a good lather, and the dishes come clean without difficulty. He dries them and puts them away in the cupboard where they always go. Then he sits in the armchair in the front room for a while. The front room faces east, and the morning sun comes in through the 2 windows and lies in warm rectangles on the wooden floor. The room is simply furnished. The armchair, a sofa, a low wooden table, a bookshelf with books that have been read many times. The room smells of wood and dust, and the faint, pleasant smell of old books. Harold does not read. He simply sits in the armchair with his hands in his lap and looks at the sunlight on the floor. The sunlight moves very slowly, so slowly that you cannot see it moving if you watch it directly. But if you look away and then look back, you can see that it has shifted slightly, that the edges of the rectangles have moved a little to the right, that the day is progressing in its slow and inevitable way. The clock on the mantelpiece ticks. Outside, the wind has picked up very slightly. You can hear it in the eaves of the house, a soft, low sound, not quite a whistle, more of a breath. The bare branches of the apple trees in the side yard move gently back and forth. In the distance, somewhere on the other side of the creek, a tractor is running. You can hear its engine, a low, steady sound that comes and goes with the wind. Harold knows whose tractor it is. It is Bill Harmon's tractor. Bill is getting a late start on his winter preparations. This does not concern Harold particularly. He simply notes it in the way you note familiar sounds, the way you might note a bird call or the sound of rain. After a while, Harold gets up from the armchair. He puts on his coat and boots again and goes outside. He has work to do in the equipment shed. Some maintenance on the plow blades, some oiling of hinges and joints that tend to rust in the winter damp. He has been meaning to do this for some days, and today is a good day for it. Clear and cold and quiet. The equipment shed is behind the barn. It is a long, low shed with a corrugated metal roof that makes a pleasant sound in rain, but is silent today. Inside, the farm equipment is arranged in a neat and orderly way. The tractor at the back, the various implements and attachments lined up along the walls, tools hanging on pegboard, cans of oil and grease on a wooden shelf. Harold finds what he needs and begins to work. Oiling the hinges of the equipment is a slow and satisfying task. You apply a little oil, work the hinge back and forth, apply a little more. The stiff, rusty resistance gives way gradually to smooth movement. The hinges that were squeaking and catching begin to move freely, with a quiet ease. Harold works through the equipment methodically, moving from one item to the next, spending a few minutes on each. He does not rush. He does not have a schedule. There is simply the work, and the time in which to do it, and the satisfaction of doing it properly. The shed is cold, but out of the wind, and after a while Harold's hands, which were cold at first, warm up with the work. The smell of oil is clean and mechanical. Outside the open shed door, the winter sunlight falls across the yard. The shadow of the shed's doorframe lies on the ground in a long, narrow bar. Somewhere outside, the cat is hunting in the dry grass of the orchard, moving with the slow, focused patience that cats bring to hunting, not hurrying, simply watching and waiting. Harold eats lunch alone at the kitchen table. Lunch is soup from a can, heated in a small pot on the stove, with bread and a glass of water. He eats without reading anything, without listening to anything, simply eating, tasting the soup, which is vegetable, and not particularly interesting, but warm and filling and good in the way that simple things are good. After lunch, he washes the pot and the bowl and the spoon. He looks out the window while he washes them. The sun is high now, as high as it gets in winter, which is not very high, and the shadows in the yard are short and cool. The chickens have come out of the coop and are scratching at the ground near the fence, finding whatever it is chickens find in the cold, dry ground. Harold dries his hands on the dish towel. He thinks about the afternoon. There are the fence posts along the south field that need checking after last week's wind. There is firewood to bring in from the woodpile. There is the account book to look at, though there is not much to add to it this time of year. He decides to check the fence first. The walk to the south field takes about 10 minutes, across the yard, through the gate, along the path that runs beside the orchard. The orchard is bare now. The apple trees standing in their rows, with their gray, gnarled branches against the pale sky. In spring, the orchard will be full of blossoms, white and pink. And in summer, it will be full of leaves and then of fruit. But now it is simply there, quietly waiting. Harold walks slowly. There is no need to walk quickly. The field will be there when he arrives. The fence will be there. He walks with his hands in his coat pockets and looks at the ground and at the sky and at the fields on either side of the path. The south field is flat and bare. The earth is dark, turned from the fall plowing, lying in long, smooth rows. Crows are walking in the field, moving slowly across the turned earth, looking for something. There are 5 or 6 crows, all moving with the deliberate, unhurried pace of crows on the ground, which is different from their flight, which can be swift and direct. On the ground, they seem thoughtful, almost philosophical. The fence runs along the south edge of the field. Harold walks along it, checking each post, pushing on each one to feel if it is loose. Most of them are solid. 2 are slightly loose, their bases shifted by the frost, heaving in the wet soil. He pushes them back into line with his boot and makes a mental note to drive them deeper in the spring. He walks the entire length of the fence. This takes some time. The fence is long. He checks each post, checks each wire, makes sure that no wire has come loose from its staples in the wind. Everything is more or less in order. The fence is old, but still sound. At the far end of the field, Harold stops and looks south. Beyond the fence, beyond a narrow strip of woodland, he can see the next farm, which belongs to the Millers. Their house is just visible through the bare trees, a white shape in the distance. A thin plume of smoke rises from their chimney, straight up in the still air, then gradually bending east as it rises. Harold watches the smoke for a while. There is something very peaceful about smoke rising straight up from a chimney on a cold, clear day. It means a warm house. It means people living quietly in the ordinary way. He turns and walks back toward his own house. Harold brings in firewood. The woodpile is stacked against the north side of the barn, covered with a sheet of old canvas to keep the rain and snow off. The wood is good dry wood, oak mostly, cut and split in the fall. Harold carries it in armloads, walking back and forth between the woodpile and the house, stacking it in the basket beside the fireplace. He makes 6 trips. On each trip, he carries a moderate armload, not too heavy, a comfortable amount. He sets each armload in the basket carefully, fitting the pieces together the way they fit best, making a stable stack. He dusts the bark and wood dust from his coat when he is done. He lights the fireplace. The fireplace in the front room is built of old stone, smooth and gray. Harold has lit fires in it so many times that the procedure is entirely automatic. The paper first, then the kindling arranged in a small pyramid, then the larger pieces laid on top, then the match. The paper catches immediately. The kindling catches a moment later, and within a few minutes, the larger pieces are burning, and the fire is established, sending its warm light out into the room. Harold sits in the armchair in front of the fire. The fire makes a low sound, a combination of crackling and hissing, and the soft roar of air moving up the chimney. The light it throws is warm and unsteady, moving across the walls and the ceiling and the floor in a slow, living way. The room grows warm quickly. Harold takes off his coat. He picks up a book from the table beside the armchair. He has been reading this book for several weeks, making slow progress. It is a long book about the history of farming. Not a dramatic book, not an exciting book, but a detailed and thorough one, full of specific information about soil types and crop rotations, and the development of various implements over the centuries. Harold finds it interesting in a quiet way. He reads a few pages every day, unhurriedly, without keeping track of his progress. He reads for an hour. The fire burns steadily. Outside, the light is beginning to fade. The short winter afternoon is ending. The shadows outside are lengthening, and the sky is turning from pale blue to a deeper, cooler blue at the horizon. Harold reads about the introduction of the iron plow into northern Europe in the early medieval period. The iron plow could cut through heavy clay soils that the lighter wooden plows could not manage. This allowed the cultivation of river valley soils that had previously been too difficult to farm. This was a significant development. Harold reads about it carefully, following the argument, noting the dates. He puts the book down and looks at the fire. The fire has settled now into a steady, even burn, the larger logs glowing orange and red, the flames lower and more constant than before. Harold watches the fire the way you watch water, without thinking very much, simply watching. Outside, the sky is dark. It is 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which in winter is fully dark, a complete and quiet darkness. The stars will come out later. On a clear night like this, the whole winter sky spread out over the fields, very bright and very still. Harold gets up and turns on the lamp in the corner. The room is now lit by both the firelight and the lamp. The firelight warm and moving, the lamp steady and yellow. He goes to the kitchen to think about dinner. Dinner is simple. Harold makes a pot of beans and sausage on the stove, a dish he makes often in winter because it is warm and filling and easy to make and improves with slow cooking. He puts the pot on a low flame and lets it cook slowly for an hour, stirring it occasionally, adjusting the seasoning. While the beans cook, he sits at the kitchen table with the account book. The account book is a large, old-fashioned ledger, its covers worn smooth at the corners. Harold opens it to the current page and looks at the numbers. Winter is a quiet time financially on the farm. There is not much coming in. The hay has been sold. The last of the fall vegetables were sold at market 3 weeks ago. The cows are producing milk, and the cream and butter sell well at the farm stand. But the farm stand is closed for the winter. He looks at the column of figures for a while, without writing anything. Then he writes down the figure for this week's milk production, and the figure for what it brought at market. And he adds this to the column, and he looks at the total for a moment. It is an adequate total. It is not a surprising total in either direction. It is the total he expected. He closes the account book. The beans smell good. He stirs them once more and lowers the flame a little. He cuts a few slices of bread and butters them and puts them on a plate. He eats dinner at the kitchen table, in the warm kitchen, with the window above the sink showing a dark square of night sky, and near the horizon, the lights of the next farm. After dinner, Harold washes the pot and the bowl and the silverware. He puts them away. He goes back to the front room and sits in front of the fire for a while. The fire is lower now, the logs burned down to coals that glow red and orange in the dim light. He adds one more log and watches it catch. He does not read. He simply sits. The house is very quiet. The clock ticks. The fire shifts and settles. Somewhere outside, the wind moves through the bare branches of the apple trees, making a very low, distant sound. Harold thinks about nothing in particular. He thinks about the fence posts that need to be driven deeper in the spring. He thinks about the seed order he needs to place in January. He thinks briefly and without any strong feeling about the weather. which has been dry this fall, and whether the spring will be wet or dry. These thoughts move through his mind slowly, like clouds, without urgency, without resolution. After a while, he gets up and checks the fire. He puts the fire screen in place and makes sure the fire guard is secure. He turns off the lamp. He checks the back door is locked. He checks the front door. These things are fine. Everything is as it should be. He climbs the stairs to the bedroom. The bedroom is cold. Harold turns on the small electric heater in the corner, and it begins to tick and glow, warming the air slowly. The bed has a heavy quilt on it, a patchwork quilt that has been on this bed for many years, its colors faded and soft. Harold sits on the edge of the bed and takes off his boots. He sits for a moment, not doing anything, simply sitting on the edge of the bed in the quiet room. The heater ticks. The window is dark, a dark rectangle with, if he looks carefully, the faint outline of the apple tree branches against the slightly less dark sky. Harold lies down. He pulls the quilt up. The pillow is cool and then warm. The quilt is heavy and soft. The heater ticks steadily in the corner. Through the walls, faintly, the sound of the wind in the trees. The farm at night is very quiet. The cows are sleeping in the barn. They sleep standing up or lying down on the deep straw, large bodies breathing slowly in the dark. Their breath rises in small clouds in the cold air of the barn, invisible in the darkness, simply there. The chickens are roosting, their heads tucked under their wings, their small bodies warm and still on the roost bars. The cat is somewhere in the barn, curled in the hay, sleeping deeply. The fields lie dark and still under the winter sky. The sky is very clear tonight and very full of stars. The stars are bright and sharp and numerous, the kind of stars you can only see far from city lights, the entire band of the Milky Way visible. A soft cloud of light stretching from horizon to horizon. The frost is forming again on the ground, very slowly. A thin white film spreading across the grass and the fence rails and the wooden sides of the barn. By morning, it will have covered everything. In the house, Harold is asleep. He sleeps without dreaming, or with dreams so quiet and mild that he will not remember them in the morning. His breathing is slow and regular. The heater in the corner ticks and glows. The house is warm. Outside, the wind has stopped. The farm is completely still. The fields lie in silence. The plowed earth is dark and quiet. The bare apple trees stand in their rows, their branches perfectly motionless without the wind. The woodpile is covered with its canvas sheet. The split logs cool and dry beneath. The moon has risen above the tree line to the east. It is a half moon, slightly more than half, casting a pale cold light across the yard and the fields. The shadows of the fence posts lie long and thin across the frost. The surface of the water trough in the yard catches the moonlight and holds it, a small bright rectangle in the dark. The crow that called this morning is somewhere in the tree line along the creek, roosting in the dark. It does not call now. It is simply there, a dark shape on a dark branch. Everything is still. Everything is resting. The farm lies quiet under the cold winter sky, under the stars and the half moon, surrounded by the dark flat fields, waiting without impatience for the morning. In a few hours, it will be morning again. The sky will begin to change slowly, so slowly that it is almost impossible to say exactly when it begins. There will be, at the far edge of the horizon, a slight lessening of the darkness, a very subtle shift in the quality of the black sky to something not quite so black, something that is still dark, but not absolutely dark. Then, gradually, the darkness will thin. The stars will fade. First the fainter ones, then, as the sky continues to lighten, the brighter ones too. The Milky Way will disappear into the brightening sky. The moon will still be there, but it will look paler, less substantial, less like a source of light, and more like a pale disk printed on the sky. The cold will deepen just before dawn, the way it always does. The frost will spread a little further, a little thicker. The grass will be white with it. The fence rails will be white. Then the sky at the horizon will turn gray, and then a faint gold. And Harold will wake up. He will lie for a moment in the warm bed, under the heavy quilt, aware of the cold room, and the light beginning to come through the curtains. He will lie there for a little while, not thinking anything in particular, simply existing in the warm quiet. Then he will get up. He will put on his clothes. He will go down to the kitchen. He will fill the kettle, and the farm will begin its day again. The cows will be waiting in the barn. The chickens will be waiting in the coop. The fields will lie in the morning light, dark and still, ready for the slow passage of another winter day. The clock will tick. The kettle will begin to make its low sound, and everything will be as it always is, quiet and unhurried and ordinary. And the day will unfold as days do, one slow and unremarkable moment after another, on the farm called Millhaven, in the quiet fields, under the winter sky.